Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlocked. Eric and Mark here with you guys as we continue to roll in. Starting things off for Split 2, the slow ramp up as we got both the LCS and the LPL going to be kicking off over the weekend. And I transport you to really little over a month ago when we were getting into playoffs for LCS lock-in. I remember you and I both chatting. We're going, Sentinels have really overperformed, so has DSG, and we might have legit 4 teams that you're excited about in the LCS, or at least feel pretty good about. Then we fast forward to the America's Cup getting bodied by the CB lull, and all of a sudden we are fully digging to try and find any type of copium as it fully transitioned from hopium to copium.
And I don't want the criticism about the performance at the America's Cup to come at the expense of just how impressive a squad like Furia was and what they were able to do. But there is absolutely no question that for the LCS teams that did attend, it was a colossal failure on all avenues in that regard of what you wanted to show out, what you needed to show up with. None of that came through on the day, and that means that we are looking through back at the LCS. And there's a lot of question marks, cause for concern into this split outside of probably that top 3 teams. And even in those top 3 teams, you have various things that you want to see improved or worked upon this split.
Yeah, I mean, if you redid the rankings as we've done for heading into spring, I think the top 3 is pretty obvious. You're still putting Leon there. They had a competitive enough series against JDG. You might feel better about it if there wasn't this insane run out of G2 dismantling the LCK. Cloud9, I don't love how things were kind of handled post America's Cup and everything. You heard a lot of them. I will dominate in Arrow, and some of the players basically just like, yeah, Lion was just better than us. So we're not surprised by the result, which, doesn't sound like a great mentality if you're asking me, but they don't seem too tilted or upset. I would have honestly liked them to be more upset with how things ended in the LCS and the America's Cup.
It felt very strange, almost conceding away that first spot within the region at that point, going like, yeah, that's it, done and dusted. There's never going to be a point that will capture or rise up in power level to that point, which is very strange for a Cloud9 roster. Never mind someone as strongly opinionated as I will dominate being on that staff. Having that type of thing come out is questionable to me, and it's one of those ones where the motivation you're looking at with this group is always going to be different, and that's one of those ones where I do need to see that turn up. You need to have pride in being that top team representing for the LCS and have your sights at that height and even further down the line when you're looking at international tournaments. So for me, for Cloud9, this needs to be a rebound in performance for them this split.
And at least they had the dominance domestically for, 95% of this first split. I think the biggest name on this list that I need to see level up is that Team Liquid roster that a lot of people had as the consensus top dogs coming into the lock-in tournament. They slowly leveled up and were, fine in playoffs, but fine is not really the aspirations for this team. We didn't see MVP level Quid. Morgan didn't come in and dominate the top lane, and even Yon and Core JJ were truthfully barely a top 3 bot lane in split 1.
It's one of those things where there's 2 sides to it, where it is, yes, there is a lot that you need to see improved, fixed, back to normal, whatever, all these things for Team Liquid to be a top contender within the LCS this upcoming split. But at the same time, because there are so many avenues that you can look at with this team, it is very plausible to believe that you do get some of these bounce backs, some of these turnaround performances. It'd be crazy to think that, again, out of that whole trio, when you're talking about Quid, Jan, and then even Morgan in that top side, not having any of those 3 really in the top 3 for their positions last split is the surprise when you are looking at this Team Liquid roster, and one that I would not be counting upon to continue in the next couple of splits. Now, the other part of that is going to be, can this team develop any actual synergy, any actual cohesion to how they are wanting to go about objectives and control around the map? That was something I don't think we really ever saw to full fruition with this team, and is something that, again, with the pieces that you have, you envision, again, you have the communication, you get some synergy, you should be able to dominate in those fashion.
And I think a lot of what the locking tournament did is because it was such a small sample size, even for teams that, played multiple rounds in playoffs, it was just a whirlwind of a split. It's really hard to grade. There's lots of question marks for pretty much every team on this roster. Obviously, Shopify need to show something, but we only got 6 games out of them. And even a squad who we've got fourth here for FlyQuest, and I know people really jumped off the bandwagon for them with how things closed out, losing 3 series in a row. But I still think this squad has incredible potential. They only lost to Cloud9 and Lion. They just had a rough 3 weeks of matchups, and I think getting a fresh start mentally for these young guys, they're going to hit the ground running.
I think that's one of the craziest things to me is that everyone was so excited about this youth run for FlyQuest and what potential was there for the individual players and the roster as a whole. And then as soon as they hit a real speed bump that you do encounter when you've got young players, this will happen at some point in the year. Everyone's, I'm out on this project. It's never gonna work or get any better. And that is, to me, wild. I definitely think that this can be an up and down split for FlyQuest, but more ups than there will be down. And I think that there is still growth for this lineup to find within this, first iteration, first tryout for so many of them in this regards at the LCS level.
And it's a similar theme for them as a lot of the rest of these guys, and that's just how you're mentally bouncing back from split one, or what your mindset is going in, because even that FlyQuest versus Leon series inspired Gap Griffin, right? He was 2 steps ahead of him in all of these counter ganks, and that's a learning opportunity. Griffin going head to head in a playoff match against who has clearly been the best jungler in the LCS, maybe even the West, for the better part of 2 years. So what do you learn from that? How do you bounce back? How do you grow and develop?
Yeah, that experience aspect, right, of being within those series, the motivations, all the things, the emotional changes and swings. That is something that you just are not prepared for in the way that everyone else is with that experience right now when you are a squad like FlyQuest. I think even further down, you can look at, another America's Cup representative in the Sentinels and what they need to do. And I think it's a little bit different as far as obviously the optics of the roster, knowing the difference in the veteran status of both teams. But it's still one of these ones where, again, you are in that prove me type of situation of the LCS where you need a bounce back performance, and especially you coming off the America's Cup performance that the Sentinels really dropped the ball. And I think a lot of people came in more so than any of the other squads where you had envisioned them having success and whatnot. Sentinels was one of those ones that you hoped would show you the better version of themselves and be looking like a strong team at the event, and they were anything but that.
They were maybe the only team from last split that I feel like overperformed throughout the whole split what people were expecting, and I'm not convinced they can reach that mark again. Pretty much everybody else on this list, even Dignitas and Shopify, you're like, I think we can expect better out of you this split. Sentinels is the one squad I'm not confident in saying that.
That's the scary thing for them, is you feel like you've hit the ultimate pedal to the metal speed floor, and you've seen it, and that was enough in the first split when other teams are struggling. The engine's not starting for Shopify Rebellion. The wheels aren't even put on the car for Disguised Toast, whatever it is. The teams are ready this time around, and they're going to be gunning for these type of positions. And for Sentinels, if that is all you are capable of, you will find yourself being passed, even in a region like the LCS. Again, specifically for me, looking at a squad like Shopify Rebellion, I think that is another one that there is no way they are as inept, as not strong as anyone else here in this region to find a way to climb up the rankings.
And these first week 1 matchups kind of have about as similar power level matchups across the board as you could possibly have. Obviously, Shopify and Dig were the 2 non-playoff teams. Got them going later on in day 2. But they kicked things off with Lion and Cloud9 in a rematch of the finals, which obviously you love to see. And then Team Liquid and FlyQuest also kick off day 2 for that kind of 3rd, 4th place, if you're looking at what we have on these rankings.
Yeah, and I think that is a good way to set them up for this weekend, and one of these ones where don't want to be doing any kind of dog water type of matches. You want to be leaning with your strong ones and right out of the gate, getting that head to head Cloud9, Leon Gaming, as well as that look at Team Liquid and FlyQuest, pretty much our third and fourth teams. Very much so excited about those type of matchups. And still, even outside of that, you're looking at squads again, like Shopify Rebellion, looking for that bounce back, looking for some of those impressive Ziny performances that we know he is going to be capable of and will showcase in the LCS. It's only a matter of time until everything falls into place for them.
It's a very different competitive landscape over in the LPL as we head to Split 2, where it's very much just we're looking for a rival for BLG. Anyone here to contest? Billy, first stand champions, LPL champions. Even though it felt like they weren't firing at 100%, they've still won every tournament that they've entered since Viper came over to the squad. So really, this whole split is just a question of AL, Top Esports, Weibo, JDG. Who's going to step up to the plate?
When we're talking about BLG and you are looking at what they need from the rest of the LPL, it is having that true rival, having that next challenger up that's going to push them to the lengths that you need to stay at to be a top team on the international scene, at an MSI, at a world championship. And that starts with looking at squads like JDG, looking at anyone's legend, looking at Top Esports and hoping that they can be one of these squads. Even looking even further out at the LPL, you've got Weibo hanging around as they usually do in some type of aspects. You are looking for someone else in the LPL to rise up to that level that we have seen from BLG. Otherwise, I think, again, it'll be too stagnant within the region as far as what you are challenged with and tested with, that you will falter on the international stage. But I will say, for BLG, I've got faith in some of these bounce back projects within the LPL this year specifically. I think anyone's legend should be hungry coming back to the table this split around, looking to get a better result, and as well looking at Top Esports, which I know we talked about yesterday, and is going to have to go through a heck of a lot behind the scenes with our boy 369 taking a step away from everything that went away and gone on, but having Tian step into the jungle position and your boy Jackie Love return is a huge bounce back for this Top Esports team. That could be one of those ones, if they get the same level of performance last split out of Cream, should be in that same conversation at the very top of the LPL.
And it seems like it needs to be somebody other than JDG, because they've kind of had their test and have been trending in the wrong direction. They lost 3-2, then 3-1 in finals, and then swept at first stand. So not a great history the last three. So yeah, we're looking at Top Esports with the new roster. AL proving, is 2025 really, is this the same squad here in 2026? And honestly, heading into this, I mean, Weibo beat AL. They, beat Top Esports in a contested Game 5. I feel like Weibo might even be at the top of this list for contenders to BLG right now.
And it's one of those things where I think, for me at least, with JDG as a team, I'm not looking at them really immediately in this second split. It's almost strange. Normally that would be the expectation coming off an first stand, an international event type of thing, looking for that immediate improvement and lessons learned. I think for JDG, it's going to be a longer timetable until we fully see that bounce back to that top tier and where they're ready to compete and showcase the lessons learned from this first stand event. I think that's more so going to come towards around the next split and around Worlds qualification time, hopefully, for a squad like JDG. But as you said, the second split, you need to have somebody stepping up. And right now, that seems like it could be a Weibo team, a Weibo that was hovering around a lot of good, underlying type of statistic numbers looking at last split, and still getting strong performances from their leader in Xiaohu. That is going to be a big part of whether they are in that dance, in that conversation of the top teams in the LPL.
Yeah, and we've had an angry Elk in the bot lane for Weibo as well. I think has kind of felt like he got done dirty by BLG, and we've seen him 100% be a premier AD carry in the LPL in Split 1. But now him and Gala gonna be contested with your boy Jackie Love back in the lineup to dominate the domestic split. And we know Tien, say all you will about clutch and choke factor, regular season is where this dude thrives.
Yeah, I think that is certainly a conversation for another day type of thing when you are examining Tien and under that type of light. But again, when you are looking at it from the perspective of, okay, well, you've got to get enough work done to make the opportunities happen for you later on in this LPL split. Tien is the top option. There is no question about that on the outside looking in when you need to make such a change like that. And with all the drama and ups and downs that came through beforehand, having a steady hand, steady performance like Tien in that jungle could be something exactly what the doctor ordered for top esports.
We did have matchups still going in the LCK, even though it wasn't heavy hitters of the big dogs. We did have some turn back the clock type of performances, and Nongshim and your boy Scout hitting the ground saying, Calix, I'm sorry, my dude. You're not going to be starting games at least early on in the split, because the best back-to-back games we've gotten out of Scout since, I might even say 2024, as they completely body third place D plus Kia from the LCK Cup.
There's something about just seeing Showmaker on the other side. That has to be it for Scout.
Buff,
First,
yeah.
the world championship, and here we go again in the LCK. Yeah, very much so. A turning back the clock performance from Scout individually. A lot of other good things, as well, with the Nongshim squad done on the day to take this in a very controlled fashion against DK, and that's one of those ones where I think it's going to cause some early panic and alarms about DK and not maybe getting as strong of a DK as we were hoping to see this split. Early one matchup, yes, but for Nongshim at the very least, this is good signs, and it's one of those ones where it's somewhat complicated, because those good signs, you want to get to the point where you're throwing Calix in and you're getting experience and you're building him up. But if Scout's going to give you a performance like this and carry the team, you can slot him in, and it works for this Nongshim squad, and very much so a battle that we are keeping track of as far as who's going to be one of those teams joining the Rise group or joining, the Legends group here as we move through the LCK.
Well, I mean, now you have the KT big win against T1. Nongshim does this to D+, and all of a sudden, DK, you're like, you're looking outside of the top 5 pretty quickly if you play like this.
It's pretty scary. That's just how fast things will go here in the LCK. And again, it's not going to be like it's going to be a ton of weeks until we separate. It's going to happen relatively a lot sooner than you think when we do separate the groups here in the LCK. So very much so an important early season, early dominant performance from Scout this second split.
And also a shout out to the other veterans on the squad. Lehens and Kingen both had fantastic series against D+ as well. And now On has broken the meta because we're getting support Anivia everywhere heading into Split 2.
I think is an extension of what we have seen, and it's kind of almost puzzling that it took so long to get down to this point, because it's one of those ones where it's been an option before, and it certainly has been when Anivia is strong enough to be in the meta. It's just a matter of where you're positioning it, and can your support be relied upon to properly utilize this champion and the positioning and walling that you need to be doing to really make it a threat out there. Lehens absolutely gets the check mark A+ on that.
And we're getting 3 check marks for another former world champion turning back the clock, as Piosik remains the consistent force on the DN Supers, as they less of a stiff competition in the Kiwoon DRX, KRX on the screen, which is going to throw me off for the entire split to see them. But they are winless under the new organization banner, as Piosik rips a little 10-0-6 Nefiri performance.
That's just the crazy things that can happen in the LCK. Having a player like Piosik, again, very, very familiar with his days in the LCS as well, and these are sometimes the performance swings that you can have, but sometimes you hit the jackpot, and you get a day like today where he is in that world champion difference maker type of form, and was that for the DN Supers. And again, one of those ones where, how many times has it happened? How many times have we seen a DRX, a KRX, whatever, go on type of Longzhu? How many King Zones? How many have we had for renamings of this organization? This has to be the most name-swapping organization in the history of esports.
Yeah, especially, they're not even like sweeping changes, right? Like going from Dragon X to just DRX, right? Like it's literally just shortening it. But yeah, here they are, KRX coming in to start the thing winless. But the DN Supers obviously had a nice little run in playoffs that completely overperformed all they did last year, basically, in one fell playoff bracket swoop. So excited to see them start at this level again. Obviously, it's clear. I feel like Bro is sitting at the bottom of the table, as Hanwha Life proved. They are, in fact, not a 10th place team. But really, this whole middle pack of the LCK, I think from 4th to like 8th, it's pretty contested.
It's exciting because you can feel like someone is going to bust out of this group. Someone is going to push themselves out of it and find themselves in that rarefied upper air echelon that is containing the T1s, the Gen Gs, the Hanwha Lifes, expectedly, the top tier teams. That's where I think we are headed to do for one of these squads that is in kind of that 4 to 8 type of zone of the LCK. Someone's going to be joining our top tier pretty soon, and to see the, a fighting and growth between them all is one of the fun things in the LCK this split.
Squad that has the first opportunity to climb into that top. Next up on the docket for KT is a matchup with Gen G, making their split debut. If KT wins this series, that's a big if against Gen G, then the roller coaster is right alongside Artemis 2 going to the moon, let me tell you.
It can't happen, because I tell you, a roller coaster, you can't have 2 climbs in a row. It has to be one down and then back up. And so we've had the T1 series, so it has to be a down at some point for KT. I cannot predict 2 in a row for this squad at this point. Although, again, anything is possible. If your boy BDD unlocks some of those performances that he had against T1, the rest of the crew, if Perfect is up to that level, now it's going to be different going up against Keen than it is Doran's level performance was on the day. But very much so excited to get that head-to-head.
So here's the script. I just got it. It's you can't have 2 ups, as you say. So it's KT going up 1-0, dominant gold lead in game 2. One team fight throw. Gen G gets the reverse sweep. That's how I see it going.
Okay, but that leaves game 3 open for the potential rise back up of the roller
it's a Gen G
coaster
stump.
to find.
It's a Gen G stump. Yeah.
Oh, that is the disembark, the roller coaster.
Yeah, the big dip.
Okay. Well, that you can buy that one too. That happens sometimes, but I think at this point, what you have seen from KT this week, at the very least, you give them a pass heading into that.
Regardless of how Gen G goes, they're definitely getting a passing grade for week 1 action. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. Catch you on that flippity flip.